Well, thank God it's Friday, so it's another opportunity to do 55 minutes of business. That's what we do right here on Business Incorporated. Here's what we have prepared for you today. In Ethiopia, they have a higher target for their revenue. Find out how they want to reach that. $12.5 billion is the target. And Prince Williams will be touring South Africa next week. 4 days tour. What will be his activity? There's a special interest in Rivers State, South Nigeria. Allocations will not be going there. How will this state survive? Good afternoon. I'm Ini John Mekwa. This is Business Incorporated. We'll do 55 minutes of business, beginning from the global space. And we can tell you that metals, gold traded just a little changed on Friday as investors refrain from taking big positions ahead of the United States payroll data that could provide further clues about the Federal Reserve's interest rate. We'll keep our eyes on the numbers this afternoon, and we see that spot gold is retaining the 2,700 level, 2,746.09 per ounce. It's unchanged. And US gold also around that level also, even though there's a little bit of change there, 0.2%. When we look at other metals also for today, we say palladium or spot silver, we'll start from there. Unchanged. A lot of uncertainty going on there. The data being awaited, CPI being awaited, counting down to the big US elections also. That is a major one. So we see spot gold unchanged at $32.65 per ounce. Palladium, a platinum also unchanged, 987.64. Palladium is down 0.4%, $1,101 per ounce. And as said before, data from US labor cost recorded small increase in more than 3 years. Number of Americans filing for application of unemployment fell. And then, of course, the election is the biggest one that investors are looking at, counting down to that. Well, still in the global space, oil prices extended gains on Friday, climbing more than $1 a barrel to pare weekly losses as geopolitical tensions in the Middle East have come up again following report that Iran was preparing a retaliatory strike on Israel from Iraq in the coming days. See the numbers, $74.22. That's what Brent is at after it gained 0.2%. WTI about the same range, 0.21% at $70.72. So I wonder what will happen this weekend, because Israeli intelligence is suggesting that Iran is preparing to attack Israel territory later on this weekend. No date yet, but I mean, all fingers are now crossed, and investors and suppliers are looking the way of geopolitical tension. We're still staying in the oil and gas space, but here in Nigeria, Dangote Refinery has reacted to the insinuation by the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN, that members are experiencing difficulties loading refined products from their refinery. Well, Dangote states that there are no direct business dealings between both parties, that's IPMAN and Dangote, at this time, and payments are made through the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, that's the NNPCL. Well, Dangote further states that they can meet the nation's demand for all products, including petrol, diesel, and aviation fuel, with their capacity to load 2,900 trucks daily and also have evacuation by sea. Well, this is contained in a statement signed by the refinery's Group Chief Branding and Communication Officer, Mr. Anthony Chejina. Closely related to that, the Ghanaian government has called for harmonized currency among members of the Economic Community of West African States, that's ECOWAS, to aid in fuel lifting from the Dangote Refinery and other business transactions. The Chief Executive Officer of the National Petroleum Authority in Ghana, Dr. Mustafa Abdul Hamid, is emphasizing that unified currency would streamline transactions and reduce foreign exchange hurdles in cross-border trade, notably benefiting large-scale fuel distribution from facilities like Nigeria's Dangote Refinery. He adds that a harmonized ECOWAS currency could simplify transactions across member countries, potentially lowering costs associated with currency conversions and reducing dependence on FX reserves. Now, away from that, now the Nigerian Railway Corporation has awarded a 3-year license to the China Civil Engineering Construction Corporation, the CCEC, to operate freight services on Lagos-Ibadan standard gauge railway line, and that starts from October 2027. With the CCEC becomes the first company to be licensed for standard gauge rail freight services in Nigeria. The announcement was made in a tweet by CCEC on Friday, and they also shared on that the official license certificate. It's worthy to note that the Lagos-Ibadan Railway is a 157-kilometer standard gauge railway line that connects Nigerian cities of Lagos, Abeokuta in Ogun State, and Ibadan in Oyo State. Still staying with the government in Nigeria, the federal government has launched a roadmap to tackle plastic pollution in the country, expressing hope that private sector investors will invest in that plastic waste management. They were speaking at the launch organized by the Nigerian National Plastic Action Partnership and the Federal Ministry of Environment. The Minister of Environment and Chairman of Nigeria, NPAP, Mr. Balarabe Lawal, believes that as one of the fastest growing countries in the world, Nigeria faces a significant challenge in managing the large volume of plastic waste being generated in the country. He sees this challenge as an avenue to create wealth for massive circular economy across plastic waste management value chain. The funds in the excess crude account stands at over $473,000, while the stabilization account is at over 36 billion naira. The governor of Kwara State, Abdulrahman Abdulrazak, disclosed this at the end of the National Economic Council meeting in Abuja. He said that this was part of a presentation by the Minister of Finance, Mr. Wale Edun.
Excess crude account, $473,754.57. The natural resources account, 26,105,837,627 naira 67 kobo. Stabilization account, 36,299,452,763 naira 32 kobo. Things are really looking up indeed.
All right, now let's head to South Nigeria, Rivers State, where allocation there, we've been told, or the announcement was made following a ruling by a court in Abuja. There'll be no allocation given to Rivers State because of, some of those political quagmire that has been going on right there. Well, the governor has assured people in Rivers and Nigerians that he's not perturbed by it. He has other ways to deal with expenses of the state, from salaries to paying contractors and all of that. But the private sector there are also worried about how this will affect them. So we have joining us for this conversation. Well, normally you would know him as the president of Petrol, that's Petroleum Products Retail Outlet Owners Association of Nigeria, Mr. Billy Gilizari. But today we'll speak to him as the chairman, Board of Trustees Coalition of South Chambers of Commerce, and also the past president of Port Harcourt Chamber of Commerce. As speaking for the private sector at this time, Mr. Billy Harris, good afternoon and good to have you on the program.
Yeah, good afternoon and thank you for having me.
So do tell us, Mr. Gilizari, how worried are you with this pronouncement? The governor has said there's no need to worry, but I mean, for you as a private sector, you have businesses operating in Rivers State. Are you worried or are you assured by the governor's comments?
Well, there is no businessman that will hear that pronouncement from the judiciary that will not be worried and leave some those business in Rivers. As you know, Nigerian business is all pretty much mostly on the budget. So, from January, businessmen start to put their plans on what areas the business is, and it is always along the lines of what the budget position. So if there is for any reason uh, funds that will come to the government that actually going to be the basis on which economic activity is funded and activated all year round, it is worrisome for us as business. However, we have had the governor come out and say we don't have any reason to worry. We encourage him to do as much as possible to get all of these issues out of the way. Let River State have the kind of peace that is required for business to thrive, for the economy to thrive. So we are concerned, because at the end of the day, that budget is what is going to be the basis on which our own budgetary activities and business, very much.
What is the private sector planning to do? Do you have a strategy in place to help you deal with this situation?
Well, actually, the Chamber of Commerce try to have a coalition of making up the organized private sector. We'll review what the activities look like. Obviously, we'll come out, with ideas of how we think we can contribute, to the stability of policy and rivers. We certainly need to take people. We need every warring side to keep their sword. We need honesty and truth to just reign in the state and let the economy not be, translated based on these political, activism that's going on. So that's all we can do. Is the matter has already gone to court. I'm not a lawyer, so I cannot uh, wield to those legal technicalities. But as a businessman and a layman, I do know that the judgment of court will stifle funds coming into the state. And so we hope that it will be resolved as fast as possible so that the economy do not suffer further, to create. And of course, the river state is a micro Nigeria, as you all know. So anything that's happening there will certainly be impactful in other parts of the country. So we as businessmen, we can only comment that, right? Look at the realities of these economic input as to how the economy of river state can be active, be thriving, and ensure that rivers men and women and those who live and do business do not suffer. So, good.
All that, I mean, River State is a major oil producing state in the country. So there are some businesses or business persons who will still have to do business there. I wonder what the sentiment is around there, seeing that the resources are there. So there are contracts that have been signed. Do we see this causing any disruption in some of those agreements and contracts and MOUs that have already been signed even before now?
Well, this judgment came in just towards the end of last week. I mean, towards the end of the week. And we as businessmen also owe ourselves the responsibility to peruse through the judgment and know what comes to the judgment. But it's easy for it to create a panic that suddenly there's not going to be funds coming into rivers. But we believe and hope that such negative values will not come in. I mean, the governor has, in his usual very peaceful way, assured rivers before that there will be nothing to worry too much about. But we are concerned, that this type of situation will see focus in rivers. Because this is not the first time it's happening. It's been happening almost in all the institutions that are handing over to the next one. So we need to really get our act correct and straighten ourselves out and allow our state to be very critical to the growth of the economy of Nigeria to become very, robust.
Mr. Billy Gillies, Harry, thank you so much for your time. And we'll certainly be following the development in the state, and hopefully we will not lose businesses at this time for the country. Past President, Port Harcourt Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and also the President of Petroleum Products Retail Outlet Owners Association of Nigeria. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, let's get to the markets now and see what the numbers look like for the market at this time. Intraday market, beg your pardon. These numbers were taken just 30 minutes or so before now, but we see that the NGX is continuing in that negative trend that it closed the month with. The first day of November, we're seeing a negative trade, at least at intraday. Wonder if there'll be a recovery by the close of trade, but 97,000 is what we're starting the month with, at 97,531.06 after it dropped 0.16%, beg your pardon. For Johannesburg, South Africa, it's the flip, 0.58% in the green, 85,880.38. Let's look at other parts of the continent. Egypt is closed for today. Yes, Egypt is closed for today, so it's not intraday, 30,658. And then for Nairobi 0.94% as intraday, lost that 118 level for of that, unfortunately. As we know, this is for Thursday's close. Let's look at other markets. I believe we have for Middle East at this time. Yes. So we see two markets trade today. Two markets did not trade for the Middle East. The market that we follow, Dubai, is in the green, 0.4%, 4,609.62. Abu Dhabi is 0.31%, in the green, 9,357. Other parts of the Middle East, these markets are closed for today. They don't trade on Fridays. Tadawar and Qatar closed in the green, 0.03% and 0.58% at the close of trade yesterday. Let's head to the US, I believe. There you have it. The Dow Jones has recovered a bit. Yesterday was a very negative day for that features because of financial result that came in. But today seems a bit different. Nasdaq 100 features we see advanced, Dow Jones advanced, S&P 500 advanced. So they're in the green at this time. But let's just take a few hours, look a few hours backwards and see how Thursday's trade close with our Washington correspondent, Maria Bird.
The U.S. stock market tumbled on Thursday as the Dow Jones saw its largest loss for the month at 0.9% down. The S&P 500 was down at 1.9%, and the heavy-tech Nasdaq took the largest loss of the day at 2.7% down. This is mostly due to big tech companies that showed a bit of a struggle on Thursday, as Microsoft and Meta showed some decreases in earnings, as AI is showing to be very expensive and could cause profit losses for the companies. It is clear that investors are watching to see what will happen over the next few days and weeks ahead.
Now let's look at Asia. The market there, we see Nikkei is back to the 38,000, lost that 39,000 level, and then it's down 2.63%. Kospi of Korea is also in the red, 0.54%, 2,542.36. The Hang Seng Index, however, is on the flip side. We saw that Caxin China Manufacturing Purchases Manager for October came in at 50.3%. Anything above 50 is progressive, beating maiden estimate of 49.7. So good news for them. And then rebounding from September's 49.3 reading above. Then China's CSI 300 had jumped over 1% during the intraday trading before reversing course. But we see Shanghai right here is in the red, 0.24% at 3,272.01, while for India it's unchanged right there. 24,205 for that market. Now let's look at Nigeria's fixed income market at this time as the month of October's ended. we saw that the NGX, well, recorded a negative for the end, even though, our guest during Business Morning had said that there were some positive moves right there, even though Aradel, that was supposed to be a baby of the house, to drive the market and boost the market cap, did bring record some retreats from investors. But let's look at the fixed income market this afternoon. We're doing that with Dimeji Obasa, joins us virtually from Lagos. Hi, Dimeji. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, so let's look at the month of October just ended. I know we're still computing the data for the month. Perhaps by next week we will get all of that. But from your daily dealings, how would you describe the fixed income market for the month of October?
The fixed income market for the month of October, I'd say, was one where we had reduced activity. And this was as a result of the low levels of money market liquidity in the system. However, we did note some periods of strong demand, particularly on the bond side. After the bond auction, you saw a significant rally in the fixed income market for bonds. Just to give you context, the two bonds that were on offer at the auction were the 2029 and the 2031. We saw the bonds close at the auction at 20.75 for the 29 and 21.74 for the 2031. And we saw those bonds trade very bullish, and they closed the month at 20.2 for the 29, and the 31 closed as low as 21.1. So despite the low levels of fixed income trading activity, we still had some periods of bullish sentiment within the month where we saw strong demand.
Yeah, and then I remember, I think at the beginning of the month, there was the expectation that yields would drop since there was a lot of activity in the second quarter. But I don't know if that was sustained, the fact that yields were still high at the beginning of the month.
So that expectation that yields would drop did not materialize fully. And that is because, again, throughout the month, money market liquidity was tight. So we didn't see that aggressive drop in yields that some market participants had expected going into the month.
So based on this, what are the expectations for the month of November? How much participation from the government can we expect?
So for now, what we can be sure of is that we would have at least one bond auction in the month of November. And also we should have two treasury bill auctions in the month of November, where the government will be, through the DMO, will be looking to roll over some of the maturing treasury bills in the month of November along the three standard maturities. That's the 91, 180, and 364 days treasury bills. And then also we expect that the 2029 as well as the 2031 would also likely be on offer at the bond auction that's scheduled to hold later this month. In terms of trading activity for the month, we expect it to still be very similar to what we had last month, because we don't expect there to be significant trading volumes and activity. We just see that maybe we probably would have some short periods of buying pressure, but overall, for the month of November, the outlook is bearish.
What about foreign participation in the market? I know the treasury bonds were really attractive to them. How was it in October, and what can we expect in November?
Overall, foreign participation in the fixed income market has been strong this year. In last month in particular, we've had significant participation, particularly on the shorter end of the curve with the treasury bill space. So the CBN had two OMO bill auctions last month, and we saw a lot of participation from the foreign portfolio investors. We had the CBN was able to raise about 905 billion at the first OMO auction, and then another 731 billion. And we've seen significant secondary market trading activity for those OMO bills amongst the foreign portfolio investors. For this month, we expect that we'll continue to see the same levels of offshore participation in our market, but it's not very clear whether or not we're going to have the CBN come into the market to issue new OMO bills at this time. But for sure, we expect that the foreign participation will continue to remain high in the market going into November.
All right. So, as a player in the market, speak to us about the effectiveness of these instruments in the policy roadmap of the government. You know, in liquidity, squeezing out liquidity from the economy. We just saw the M3, money supply, and it doesn't feel that we're really feeling the impact, but you are there firsthand. Tell us how effective these instruments have been, the OMO, the treasury bonds, and all of that, in squeezing out liquidity and actually getting us to a level that, the economic policy is leading.
Yeah. So this high interest rate environment that we have is as a result of the CBN trying to fight inflation by mopping up money from the economy. As you know, when rates are high, typically what would happen is that individuals, corporates, in the economy as a whole would look to save more as opposed to consuming. That's just like the what the economic principles say, and we've seen that play out really. As a matter of fact, this year alone, we've seen significant participation among retail investors in the fixed income market compared to last year or the year. For treasury bills, you could get as high the long end of the treasury bills curve, and that has been very attractive for retail investors, and we've seen them come into the market very actively to participate.
All right, Dimeji Basa, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and time with us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Now let's move on to Europe now, where the European Commission is planning to investigate Chinese online shopping platform Temu over possible violation of its Digital Services Act. And let's get details now from Chip Chiponda Chimbelu, joins us from Berlin. Hi, Chip. What's the backstory of this?
Thanks for having me. Well, INI, the European Commission, says its probe is linked to the sale of illegal products and whether Temu has done enough to prevent that. Now, other issues in the investigation include Temu's potentially addictive design, systems that recommend products to users, and data access for researchers. Now, Temu has taken up much of the world by storm, and last year, the ultra-low-cost shopping platform was, in fact, the most downloaded app in France and Germany. That's also why any potential violations are a major source of concern for the European Commission. And like other e-commerce retailers like Amazon and Zalando, Temu cuts out middlemen and links buyers directly to manufacturers in China. That means that goods are sent straight from Chinese factories or warehouses to European buyers. That model, of course, also raises questions as to whether there are systems to ensure products are meeting EU standards.
Chip, what does this mean for Temu as a company and a business?
Well, Temu could be fined as much as 6% of its annual revenue if Brussels finds that the company violated the Digital Services Act. The Chinese company has reportedly said it will cooperate with EU regulators. And of course, depending on the findings of the investigation, Temu may also be forced to review its business model to ensure that it can comply with EU rules. That, of course, may also be welcome news, not just to the platform's competitors, but also to other industries. Earlier this year, Reuters had reported that Temu was sending around 4,000 tons of goods a day around the world from China. So the platform has been taking up a big chunk of the available air cargo space to move all those packages, and it has pushed up shipping costs and created capacity shortages. And because of the amounts that people are buying, there are also concerns about waste in the EU. Of course, that is not just a problem caused by Temu, but also other e-commerce platforms that sell products very cheap. And Temu, of course, isn't the only company undergoing investigation for potential violation of the Digital Services Act. Meta, Alibaba, TikTok, and X are also facing probes. So this is, of course, maybe another example of Brussels making sure regulations are not being flouted by companies and services that are popular with European users.
Yeah, well, one would think, is it because it's China? That's why it's the only one standing out at this time. But let's look at the markets now.
European stocks are expected to be little changed. Investors are cautious. And that, of course, comes after selling pressure on Asian and US markets, where tech stocks led the declines. Microsoft and Apple's earnings disappointed. The iPhone maker, in particular, posted a decline in sales in China and gave a tepid forecast. And of course, it's also just days until the US elections on November 5th. And while some investors have been trading on expectations that a Trump win could bring inflationary policies, polls show that the race is still too close to call. Not much, of course, economic data is expected on the calendar here in Europe. It's just the UK's manufacturing PMI. So the highlight will come in later in the day when US non-farm payrolls figures are released.
Yeah, everybody waiting for that data. Chip, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Now, let's come to Africa, and British Prince William's jets to South Africa next week to start a 4-day trip. And William travels to Cape Town on Monday for a series of events to promote his Airshot Prize, while he will also attend the United for Wildlife Global Summit and have a meeting with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa during his stay there. Well, he is looking forward to spending time with the people, he says, from South Africa and across the wider continent, as well as celebrating the incredible climate solutions that will be spotlighted. This is a statement from the palace. The trip will be the first Prince of Wales' first to South Africa since 2010, and he'll be making the visit alone, as his wife Kate is still managing a return to work after finishing a course of preventive chemotherapy for cancer. William, who, like his father, King Charles, has become a keen environmental campaigner, set up the Airshot Prize in 2020, inspired by his last visit to Africa 6 years ago, and not to former U.S. President John F. Kennedy's Moonshot project, which led to the 1969 lunar landing. Its goal to find innovations to combat climate and other green issues, and awards 5 winners £1 million each to drive their project. The ceremony itself will be held November 6th, hosted by U.S. actor Billy Porter and South African television presenter Bonang Matheba, and will also feature performances by the likes of Nigerian pop star Davido and Tanzanian singer Diamond Platnumz. Still in Africa, but now in Ethiopia, the country is more than doubling their targets for revenue amid an International Monetary Fund financing program that sets out several conditions to reform East Africa's biggest economy. The country seeks to collect 1.5 trillion birr, that's about $12.5 billion, in the fiscal year to July 7. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed told lawmakers that compare this to 613 billion birr the finance minister set in its 2024-2025 budget presented in June. The next more revenue, Ethiopia is introducing new taxes, including value-added tax on banking services, property taxes, and an excise tax on telecommunication services. In the first quarter of the fiscal year that started in July, authorities collected 65% more than a year earlier, but the 180 billion birr is woefully low given the latest target. Africa's second most populous nation signed up for a $3.4 billion IMF dollar bailout in July after defaulting on a Eurobond that's maturing in December. In exchange, it had to allow its currency to float freely. Other reforms it's been implementing include opening up its financial sector to foreign investment and plans to privatize state-owned enterprises, including a giant telecommunications operator. Ethiopia plans to collect 900 billion birr from federal sources, 600 billion birr from regional government. And to achieve this, the president says he's stabilizing a high-level committee to focus solely on overseeing revenue collection. And from there, we go to Zimbabwe, where the organized labor and alliance representing mainstream trade union is calling an investigation into the allegations of widespread corruption, tax evasion, and regulatory violations by some Chinese firms operating in the country. Despite a steady rise in Chinese investment, some of these firms have faced criticism for allegedly ignoring local labor laws and evading tax obligations. Organized labor comprises several prominent workers, federations, including the Zimbabwe Federation of Trade Unions and the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Union. We do hope this doesn't snowball into another protest in that country. But we're still in Zimbabwe. The Embassy of India in Zimbabwe has revealed that annual bilateral trade between New Delhi and Harare has reached $200 million, marking a significant milestone in a long-standing partnership that stretches across the trade, culture, education, and development. Indian ambassador to Zimbabwe, Brahma Kumar, told investors that they employed approximately 5,000 people across sectors such as food processing, mining, textiles, agriculture equipment, and polymers. The private sector has invested an estimated $600 million, a figure poised to grow as trade and investment between the two nations deepen. We're in Egypt now, where Telecom Egypt has announced a successful signing of an 18 billion Egyptian pound syndicated loan facility, a crucial step in rebalancing the company's cash flow and enhancing its financial flexibility. The syndicate consists of 13 banks led by Commercial International Bank Egypt and Bank Misr, an initial mandated lead arranger and book runners, along with the National Bank of Egypt as mandated lead arranger and book runner. Telecom Egypt will use this new 7-year syndicated facility to refinance its existing short-term facilities, and the refinancing comes at a strategic juncture, aligning with Telecom Egypt's ongoing effort to improve its cash flow, ensure adequate liquidity, and enhance financial flexibility as the company executes its long-term growth plans. Now let's head to the crypto space now, and you can expect that the U.S. election is going to be top mover of the markets right there. So let's look at the price. We see Bitcoin has dropped from the 71,000 about this time it had yesterday to 70,000. That's losing about 3% in 24 hours. I wonder if former President Donald Trump can move this, because he's in the news on this. 70,205.95. Ethereum, as Ladi said yesterday, seemed to be in the red for the month of October and is following that. Lost even more, 4.21%, 2,522.96. BNB, Torn, Cardano. I mean, it's a red Friday for this, and we're hoping to move closer to that 100,000 for Bitcoin. But I guess it's not over until it's over. Let's look at the headlines now. We see former President Donald Trump has reiterated his pledge to stop the government's crackdown on digital assets on the 16th anniversary of Bitcoin's existence. In fact, this was called Trump Celebrating Bitcoin. So we see he has declared that he would end the war on crypto. How? Well, I wonder. So we have Trump declaring that he will end the war on crypto if he becomes president. It's countdown to that. And then also in Pennsylvania last week, we did hear that judgment passed on Bitcoin rights bill. We also discussed that in Denmark, holders are paying up to 53% in capital gains tax. That's the highest globally. And I believe we do have a slide showing us the highest countries, the countries where capital gains are paid. Well, I'm told we don't have it. Apologies for that. But let's talk to Onu Obodo now to join us. and share his thoughts on these issues. Hi, Onua, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we're counting down to the election, November 5 in the United States, but obviously it's affecting everybody. And I wonder if this is going to get Mr. Trump some votes where he's celebrating Bitcoin and saying that he's going to ensure that the war on crypto ends. But I mean, you guys in the community, the crypto community, how are you seeing this? How is this going to affect his votes? I learned more than 3 million people have already voted already anyways.
Yeah. Concerning the what is the declaration on Bitcoin, is a political slogan actually, but actually it will push the market towards the bullish aspect of Bitcoin and also attract new converts into the elections proposition. The Bitcoin actually have had a lot of harsh regulations in the US, and Trump is trying to be pro crypto enthusiast in this aspect, and using the election also to get a boost on the elections.
See, working. I mean, I was in the US just last week, and conversations there, I didn't hear a lot about crypto. I heard more about, the rights and abortion and all of that. Do you see this actually having impact on the votes?
Yes, there are a lot of people that are stakeholders too in the Bitcoin space that are not too visible. But with the Kamala Harris bringing out a lot of war on the crypto space, more people are now asking more questions regarding what are the viability of the crypto generally. And with the Trump's accession on crypto, a lot of people are now doing more research on it and seeing the viability of the crypto, which will actually prompt more people to want to look the direction of Trump. And this can possibly create a buy pressure towards the crypto space when Trump finally wins. If it goes the other way around too now, but they will see more information about crypto for people to do more research on it and not know how to go about it.
Yeah, but even if he says that he's going to end the war on crypto, he will still have to work with the structure, the institutions already in place. I don't think that if Trump wins, then he can just come and just, change everything overnight.
No, there are regulations in that all stakeholders will come together, like the CFTS, the Crypto Fund Trading Commission, and that of SEC. Currently now we have to work things together if Trump actually wins the election. The election is quite close as we speak. And so both of them will come to the round table and find out the best way they can. Crypto is actually now a viable and a global thing right now. So there will always be a way around it, whichever party wins within this election.
All right, let's look at this Bitcoin rights bill that was passed last week, and I think there's an update on it today also.
Okay, the one in Pennsylvania.
Yes, the one in Pennsylvania.
The bill was actually passed, and this is another opportunity for crypto to actually express itself. It allows users and the members of the Pennsylvanians to actually have right to own Bitcoin and actually use it as a form of payment. And this also give the Bitcoin to an opportunity to for more people to naturally make a choice of how a form of payment should be made, either the fiat money or that of Bitcoin, which will also boost Bitcoin to the next level.
Yeah, but I mean, with the volatility we see around the price of cryptocurrencies, isn't that risky?
Not really. Currently, the reason we are seeing some of those volatility in the Bitcoin space is the last price of Bitcoin, which is the all-time high of Bitcoin, was close to about 74,000, and the market actually rose within the past 1 week of up to like 8-something%. Very, very close to the all-time high. And normally in the market, when we see a buy pressure going towards the all-time high level, there's always a retracement and a correction phase, so which is actually what we are facing right now. So Bitcoin will still drop down to about that 67, 68 mark before it gathers the momentum to the upside. And depending on how the election goes to now, we'll now give it more buy pressure and more momentum for an upward movement of Bitcoin.
So look at the issue of capital gains tax. If we could have that slide, that in Denmark, they're paying up to about 53%. So we see that, and it's the highest globally. And then you followed by Iceland, and then you also have South Africa, also following. So, I mean, this would mean that it will pay government around the world to regularize and adopt crypto into their system. I mean, getting up to 53% capital gains tax, that's a lot of revenue for government.
That's a lot. That's a lot of that's a lot for me, because this actually has a negative impact on Denmark and every other country that actually has capital gains on Bitcoin to be that high, because most investors actually with that kind of percentage will not want to do business with countries related to that aspect. Bitcoin actually has gone global, and the capital gains, the capital gains actually are only taxed when asset is being sold, not when asset actually appreciates. So when asset is being sold, that's when they do the capital gains. But the 53% is on the high side, which would then significantly affect the countries in question.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess crypto traders have to choose one. You want to be accepted into the system and pay taxes, or you want to have the uncertainty, which seems to be the case in Nigeria. You just have to choose one side of it.
Yeah, the traders actually have choices, and the Bitcoin regulations too actually is there for people to make choice. I think there's a lot of more to that percentage of 53%. Probably more or less another way to tell them they're not too comfortable with the crypto activities in Denmark, but that's actually very, very, very high.
Any lessons for Nigeria from there? I know we're on our path to getting regularized.
Yes, on the Nigeria aspect, we just need more using all these data and all these information to regulate ours very, very well, and take Bitcoin as a commodity, just like gold, all these ones that we see on the market, and find a better way to regulate these things so that both government and the individuals and stakeholders can come to the round table and benefit all, rather than just being more or less like chasing the Bitcoin space from here and there, because most people actually have a way of actually finding a way to trade the Bitcoin and get a better opportunity from the government. Can have a stake on that too, on the Nigerian market, so that we can diversify so many things, so that there won't be too much reliance on fiat money in Nigeria, with the banks. So with proper regulations in Nigeria, using all this data, we can go ahead with here in Nigeria.
All right. Just before we let you go now, it's the final weekend before the elections in the United States, which is a major mover of Bitcoin. But we saw that Bitcoin, in fact, the market is red this afternoon, and we saw Bitcoin look about 3%. What do you see this weekend or through next week with the elections really getting close?
Yeah, we're also really getting close. There are a lot of data that we're still expecting, like the NFP, that with the result to be coming out later today. Whatever the case with the NFP, we see the Bitcoin price to either go up, but currently now we are still expecting Bitcoin to actually drop like 1.5% to 2% to retest that particular price range before it actually went to what it went to, up to like 8%. And by next week, we should say buy pressure for coming up for Bitcoin after the election.
Well, Noah, we're still waiting for that 100,000 level that was predicted
we'll get there.
This year or next year.
No, to be honest, when we break the last all-time high of about 74,000, which is exactly $73,680 to Bitcoin. Once we break that mark, and we'll see a retest coming to that particular zone, we say we're looking about close to that 100,000. We hit 80,000 first before we get to 100,000, but it will definitely come.
All right, we'll be patient and we'll watch this space. Thank you so much, Anua, for your time this afternoon.
Thank you for having me. Yes.
All right. So that's it on the program. Thank you so much for being a part of our week. God's grace, we have another week to start off from Monday, but I guess we need to take a little bit of breather and rest. That's what we're going to do from tomorrow until Monday. John McQuarrie, but I'll see you during the stock market reports. Do remember you can watch Business Morning, Business Incorporated anytime on our YouTube channel. We're always there, information waiting for you. John McQuarrie, see you at 10 p.m.